From seeds to sanctuary. 21 crops to sow this May for a garden that feeds your soul. Hello, dear friends of earthly delights. If you've ever felt a quiet joy watching your first sprout push through the soil, or maybe you've whispered encouragement to a wilting leaf, hoping it would find its strength again, then welcome. You're in the right place. This video is for you, the indoor gardener with windowsills full of dreams. The backyard grower turning a patch of earth into something nourishing. The busy soul craving peace in the form of green leaves. Maybe you don't have a greenhouse. Maybe you missed the early seed starting season. Maybe, like many of us, you're working with limited space, time, or funds, and yet, your heart says, I want to grow something real. Today, I'm not just giving you a list of seeds to plant this May. I'm sharing a story, one of possibility, patience, and purpose. Because every seed you sow is more than just a future vegetable or flower, it's a step toward resilience, joy, and healing. So get comfortable. We're about to begin a journey through 21 crops that can transform even the smallest garden space into a sanctuary. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Earthly Delights, where we grow more than plants, we grow peace. 1. Why May matters more than you think. There's something sacred about the month of May. It's not just another page on the calendar, it's a threshold. A turning point where the cold loosens its grip, and the soil begins to hum again with possibility. If you've been waiting, if your gardening tools have gathered dust, if your heart has longed for that first real excuse to kneel down and press your fingers into the dirt, May is your invitation. And here's the beautiful truth. You haven't missed your moment. Whether you started seeds indoors weeks ago or you're just now pulling your seed packets from the back of the drawer, this is your time. Nature doesn't rush, and neither should we. In fact, for many plants, May is the perfect time to begin, especially for those of us who may not have grow lights, greenhouses, or the funds to buy full-grown seedlings. This video is for those who want to grow directly in the soil, as things have been done for generations, with patience, hope, and the wisdom of timing. You see, May is when the soil finally warms enough to welcome seeds without hesitation. Nights consistently hover near 10 degrees Celsius, or 50 Fahrenheit, which means the underground world is stirring, ready to cradle your seeds with just enough heat to spark life. And even if you're in a colder zone, like zone 3 or 4, your moment is coming. End of May sowing can still deliver abundance. That's the secret. Not all gardens are meant to start at the same time. Just like not all people bloom on the same schedule. So if you've ever felt behind, or thought gardening belonged to experts and early birds, take a deep breath. You're right on time. Your garden is waiting. And in the next part, we'll begin with the one surprising seed that you should start indoors this May, not for now, but for a sweeter, more flavorful fall. Let's begin. 2. The one powerful seed to start indoors in May. Let's begin not in the garden beds, but just beside them, on your windowsill, kitchen counter, or any quiet spot where light still lingers through the day. Because before we get our hands dirty outdoors, there's one seed that's calling for a different kind of beginning. A slower one, a more strategic one. That seed is Brussels sprouts. Now, I know they don't have the charm of sunflowers or the instant joy of baby lettuce. But what they do have is a quiet brilliance. These little cabbage-like wonders are a cool weather crop, which means their moment of glory isn't in the blazing sun of July, but in the golden hush of autumn. The trick is giving them a head start now, in May, so they can grow strong during summer and reach peak sweetness just as the first frosts kiss your garden. You see, frost isn't the enemy of Brussels sprouts, it's the flavor unlock. That chilly snap turns their bitterness into a buttery, almost nutty richness. But here's the thing. If you wait too long to start them, they'll never mature in time to meet that frost. So even if everything else in May is going straight into the ground, this one is best started indoors, in a tray, with care, like preparing a guest for a grand entrance, months in the making. And maybe that's a reflection of you too. Maybe you're not rushing to bloom early this year. Maybe you're taking your time, rooting deeply, preparing for your own late-season magic. In the next part, we'll move from windowsills to wide-open soil, where fast-growing, generous crops are ready to explode with energy. Beans, edamame, and the hidden wisdom they carry, that's what we'll explore next. Stay with me. The garden is just getting started. 3. Beans and greens, the garden hustlers. Now, let's step outside. Feel the sun on your shoulders. The soil warm beneath your fingertips. This is where the energy of May truly begins to pulse. And if you're looking for plants that give back quickly, generously, and without much fuss, it's time to talk about beans. Let's start with bush beans and pole beans, the overachievers of the garden. These are the hustlers, the kind of crops that don't wait around to be coaxed or pampered. Once they're in the soil, they shoot up with purpose. And that's why they're best sown directly into the earth. No transplanting, no fuss, just seed, soil, and a little bit of faith. Bush beans are compact, productive, and ideal for small gardens or containers. If you're short on space but craving abundance, they've got your back. And the best part? You can succession sow them every couple of weeks to keep the harvest going strong all summer. On the other hand, pole beans are your vertical dreamers. They stretch skyward, climbing anything they can find, trellises, fences, even other plants if you let them. All they ask is a bit of support, and they'll reward you with a steady stream of crisp, fresh pods. But there's a quieter star here too, edamame, or soybeans. These humble little seeds carry a different kind of magic. They love the warmth, so wait for the true heat of May before sowing them. And when they sprout, you'll want to guard them like treasure. Because rabbits and bunnies seem to love the young greens as much as we love the mature pods. But once they take hold, they're pure joy. If you've ever enjoyed edamame at a sushi bar, just wait until you taste it fresh from your own garden. Creamy, nutty, slightly sweet, it's like growing your own snack food, straight from the soil. So whether you're working with rows of raised beds or a couple of large pots on your balcony, these legumes are your allies. Fast to grow, easy to care for, and generous in return. They remind us that not all good things take time. Some just need the right moment, and May is it. Coming up next, we'll meet the bold summer climbers, zucchini and cucumber, plants that stretch, sprawl, and shine when given the space to do what they do best. Let's keep going. The garden's rhythm is just starting to rise. 4. Zucchini and cucumber, summer's bold climbers. Now let's talk about two garden powerhouses that don't just grow, they take off. Zucchini and cucumber aren't shy. They sprawl, they stretch, they demand space, and in return, they give you more than you ever imagined. These are the showstoppers of summer, vibrant, fast, and full of flavor. Let's begin with zucchini. If you've ever planted it before, you already know, one plant can feed a family. And then some. It grows fast, it produces heavily, and it doesn't need much encouragement to do its thing. The beauty of zucchini is that you can sow it directly in the ground this May. No seedling trays necessary. In fact, if you've been too busy or overwhelmed to start anything indoors, this is your redemption crop. But here's a little secret not every gardener knows. You can sow zucchini not just in May, but again in early June. Why? Because there's a window where cucumber beetles, those pesky little saboteurs, are most active. By staggering your planting, you might just dodge their first wave and grow a crop that thrives without their nibbling interference. It's like giving your garden a second chance, just in case the first one stumbles. And speaking of beetles and bugs, cucumbers are another excellent direct sow option. Some gardeners even swear their cucumbers do better when sown straight into warm soil, rather than being transplanted from indoor starts. They're a bit sensitive to root disturbance, so why not let them settle into their forever home from the very beginning? Cucumbers, like pole beans, are natural climbers. They crave support, whether it's a trellis, a fence, or a homemade bamboo frame. Let them climb, and they'll reward you with fruit that's clean, crisp, and easier to harvest. Plus, vertical growth means better airflow and fewer fungal issues. It's a win-win. And here's a bonus idea. Try planting nasturtiums nearby. These edible flowers not only add beauty, but they act as a natural trap crop for pests, luring them away from your precious zucchini and cucumbers. Nature has its own kind of teamwork. When you listen, it whispers solutions. Up next, we'll cool things down with the crops that love a brisk breeze and chilly soil: broad beans, lettuce, and spinach. These quiet growers may not steal the spotlight, but they bring steady nourishment and heart to any garden. Let's keep going. Your patch of green is becoming something truly alive. 5. The cold lovers you can still sow. Now, before the heat fully settles in and summer sings its boldest notes, there's still time to honor the crops that thrive in the hush of cool mornings and misty evenings. These are the quiet keepers of the spring garden: broad beans, lettuce, and spinach. They don't demand attention, but they give so much in return. And if you think it's too late to sow them in May, think again. Their window hasn't closed, it's simply shifted. Let's begin with broad beans, also called fava beans. There's something deeply comforting about them. Thick stems, sturdy leaves, and pods that feel substantial in your hand. These beans love the cold. And while many gardeners plant them in early spring, sowing in early May still gives you a head start on harvests before summer peaks. They're one of the best sources of plant-based protein, and their flowers attract bees like magnets. If you haven't tried them yet, this could be your season. And then there's lettuce, a garden staple that somehow still surprises. Crisp, tender, and endlessly varied, lettuce is perfect for succession planting. Even if you started some indoors, now is the time to sow another round directly into your beds or containers. Think of it like layering your harvests, while your first batch is getting ready to pick. Your next is just beginning. This rhythm keeps your salads coming fresh, week after week, without overwhelming you all at once. Spinach, too, thrives in this cooler stretch of May. It germinates quickly and gives you nutrient-packed leaves that can be picked young or grown full and leafy. And like lettuce, it's a crop that does better when sown directly. You'll find that direct sown spinach develops stronger roots and resists bolting just a little longer. What I love most about these cool season crops is how they reflect something deeper in us. They don't wait for the perfect moment, they make the most of the quiet ones. They remind us that nourishment often comes from slowing down, from embracing the gentle beginnings before the heat of life kicks in. Next, we'll move beneath the surface, into the world of root vegetables, where magic unfolds in silence and growth happens out of sight. Carrots, beets, and radishes are waiting to be sown, and they've got a few grounded lessons of their own. Let's keep digging. 6. Root revolution, the grounded trio. Now let's go deeper, literally and metaphorically. While some plants climb, and others flourish in sunlight, there's a special group that grows in secret. They don't boast, they don't bloom brightly, but beneath the surface, they're busy weaving sweetness, crunch, and color into the soil. I'm talking about the humble, yet powerful trio: carrots, beets, and radishes. If you've ever doubted whether a tiny act could lead to something meaningful, just plant a carrot seed. It's almost weightless, barely visible, and yet, in a few weeks' time, it pushes down through the soil, creating something rich, nourishing, and undeniably rewarding. Carrots need loose, well-drained soil to grow straight and strong, so if you're planting in raised beds, deep containers, or even an old bucket with good drainage, they'll thank you. Beets follow a similar rhythm. They're bold in color but gentle in spirit. From deep reds to golden hues, they add not only beauty to your plate, but incredible nutrients too. What's wonderful is that both their roots and leaves are edible, meaning you get double the reward for a single seed. In May, they settle easily into the earth, especially when sown in rows with room to breathe. And then there's the sprinter of the group: radishes. These are the garden's instant gratification. From seed to harvest in as little as 3 weeks. They teach us that sometimes the results come faster than we expect. Perfect for beginners, perfect for kids, and perfect for any space, no matter how small. One tip that applies to all three: sow on a rainy day. Let nature help you water them in gently. And once they start to sprout, take a moment to thin them out. Give each plant a little elbow room to grow to its fullest shape. There's a quiet wisdom in root vegetables. They remind us that not all progress is visible. That the most important parts of growth, the transformation, the effort, the becoming, often happen where no one sees. But just because it's unseen, doesn't mean it isn't real. Next, we'll bring our focus upward again to a playful, sweet, and climbing favorite: peas. A springtime treat that connects us to memory, to childhood, and to the joy of picking something fresh right off the vine. Let's keep growing together. 7. Peas, sweet green nostalgia. Now let's turn to something a little lighter, something that not only feeds the body, but warms the heart. Because if there's one crop that feels like childhood, like springtime in its purest form, it's peas. Sweet, tender, nostalgic, the kind of garden gift that rarely makes it to the kitchen because we eat them straight from the vine. Peas are a love letter from the earth. They don't ask for much, just a little cool weather, a place to climb, and a gardener willing to wait a few weeks for their sweet reward. If you didn't get around to planting them in April, don't worry, early May is still a perfectly good time. In fact, they prefer the cool air of spring, and once they settle in, they'll rise with gentle speed, sending out delicate tendrils looking for something, anything, to grab onto. So give them a trellis, a string, even an old tomato cage. Watch them stretch toward the light, slow but steady, and when they bloom, those tiny white or pink flowers hold the promise of something delicious just days away. But what makes peas truly special is the way they bring us back. Back to memories of shelling pods on the porch, or sneaking a handful during a garden walk. Back to the simplicity of a handful of green sweetness, warm from the sun and tasting like early summer. There's also something deeply satisfying about their rhythm. They remind us that not all harvests have to be grand, that some joys are small, quiet, and best enjoyed right there in the garden, with dirt still on your hands and the sun on your face. So if you have a little space, even in a pot near your back door, give peas a try. They're forgiving, they're fast, and they're full of flavor, in more ways than one. Next, we'll move into the world of herbs, those fragrant, healing allies that flavor our food and soothe our spirit. Cilantro, basil, dill, tiny seeds with surprisingly powerful stories. Stay with me, the garden still has more to say. 8. Herbs to soothe the mind and season the plate. And now, we enter a more fragrant part of the journey, where the garden speaks not just in shapes and colors, but in scent. Herbs are more than flavor, they're memory, medicine, and magic. Whether you're tucking a few seeds into a pot on your windowsill or sowing rows in your raised bed, herbs like cilantro, basil, and dill offer something intimate, something deeply personal. Let's start with cilantro. Its sharp, citrusy aroma is instantly recognizable, loved by many, and a bit divisive for some. But here's the secret. When sown in early May, it thrives in the cooler days, shooting up quickly and offering fresh leaves in just a few weeks. It bolts in heat, yes, but that's part of its story. It comes on strong, makes its presence known, then goes to seed and becomes coriander, another layer, another offering, a full circle plant if there ever was one. Then there's dill, light, feathery, and delicate to the touch, but with a bold flavor that brings potatoes, fish, and summer pickles to life. Like cilantro, dill loves the cool season and can be direct sown now. Scatter the seeds, water them gently, and soon those soft green fronds will wave in the breeze like wisps of childhood summer. It's one of the easiest herbs to grow, and it brings in pollinators too. Bees adore its blooms. And finally, basil, the queen of summer herbs. This one prefers a bit more heat, so wait until mid or late May to sow it directly outside. When it comes richly, sweet, spicy, floral. Rub a leaf between your fingers and suddenly, you're in an Italian kitchen or a sunlit backyard with a glass of lemonade in hand. Basil reminds us that food is not just fuel, it's ritual, love, and art. What all these herbs have in common is their simplicity. They ask for very little but give so much. A handful of leaves can transform a meal, lift a mood, or start a memory, and in the act of sowing them, we're reminded that healing often begins with the small things, a scent, a flavor, a moment of stillness in the garden. Next, we'll turn to beauty that feeds more than just the body. Get ready to meet the flowers you can sow directly this May, some edible, some medicinal, all radiant, because a true garden isn't just practical, it's poetry in bloom. Let's continue. 9. Flowers that heal the garden and the soul. And now, dear gardener, we arrive at the part of the garden that speaks not in harvests or yields, but in beauty, in healing, in color that stirs something deep inside. Because a garden isn't just about what we eat, it's also about how we feel when we're in it. And the flowers you can sow directly this May? They are small miracles, each in their own way. Let's begin with calendula, sometimes called pot marigold. This isn't just a cheerful daisy-like bloom, it's a plant with purpose. Its golden petals have long been used in herbal salves and skin-soothing oils. But in the garden, calendula also shines as a pollinator magnet and companion plant. It loves cool weather, so May is the perfect time to welcome it into your soil. Scatter the seeds, pat them down gently, and let them do their quiet work. Next comes cornflower, or as some call it, blue boy. These are the artists of the garden, blooms that look like they've been painted in strokes of blue, purple, white, and pink, easy to grow, wildly inviting to bees, and stunning in any bed or bouquet. Sprinkle them like confetti across your garden beds and enjoy the magic that follows. And then there's nasturtium, a flower I often call the overachiever. It's edible, vibrant, and an incredible natural pest repellent. Plant them at the edges of your beds and watch them spill over like living garlands. Their peppery leaves and blossoms can dress up any salad, and their roots help protect your veggies. Beauty with brains. What more could you ask for? Sweet alyssum follows close behind, weaving soft, fragrant carpets of tiny blooms. These little flowers may seem delicate, but they call in the cavalry, beneficial insects like parasitic wasps that help defend your tomatoes from hornworms. It's nature's quiet defense system, wrapped in white and lavender blossoms. Then, of course, we meet the mysterious and poetic poppy. These are best sown directly, as they hate being transplanted. Their seeds are tiny, almost dust-like, but once they find a home in your soil, they hold the promise of drama and grace. I've scattered poppy seeds in sidewalk cracks, just to see what might bloom. Sometimes they surprise you. And finally, sunflowers, those bright, beaming giants that turn their faces toward the sun and teach us to do the same. You can start them indoors, sure, but they thrive just as easily when sown directly into the soil. Just remember to protect the seeds from birds, and the seedlings from squirrels. Sunflowers don't just grow, they stand, boldly, proudly, and they bring joy to everyone who passes by. Together, these flowers do more than decorate your garden. They elevate it. They restore something inside us that's often dulled by the rush of life. A moment of pause, a flash of color, a reminder to slow down and breathe. In our next section, we'll briefly revisit the plants you may have started indoors that are finally ready to move outside, and how to make that transition smooth and safe. Because even strong roots need time to adjust to a new home. Let's walk that next step together. 10. The Great Migration, transplanting your indoor starts. And now, we arrive at a moment many of you have been waiting for. After weeks, maybe even months, of nurturing your little seedlings indoors, under grow lights or beside sunlit windows, it's finally time to bring them out into the world. This part of the gardening journey is what I like to call the Great Migration, when your plants leave their safe, stable homes and begin their next chapter in the open air. But here's the thing. Even the strongest seedlings need a gentle hand when facing the wildness of the outdoors. The shift in temperature, wind, light, and rain, it's a lot. That's why this step matters. Hardening off isn't just a task, it's a ritual. A slow acclimation that prepares your plants not just to survive, but to thrive. Start by placing them outside for just a couple of hours a day. Then gradually increase their exposure, longer time, brighter light, maybe a bit of breeze. Let them feel the real sun, the real wind, the real world, but let them feel it slowly. Think of it like easing into cold water. Shock is never kind to tender roots. And how do you know when it's truly time? Check your nighttime temperatures. When they consistently stay above 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, your garden is ready, and so are your plants. That means it's time to transplant your tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, squash, cucumbers, melons, those sun-hungry crops that have been waiting patiently. It's also time for cool season friends like kale, lettuce, chard, cilantro, dill, and all the flowers that adore the warmth, zinnias, cosmos, strawflowers, and statice. Each transplant is a little act of faith. A moment where you say, I believe you're ready now. And maybe, as you crouch there gently loosening the roots, tucking soil around the base, and giving that first deep watering, you'll feel a quiet pride. Because this didn't happen overnight. You grew them, and now, they'll grow you back. Next, we'll close our journey with something deeper, a reflection on what the garden is really teaching us. Beyond vegetables and flowers. Because by now, it's not just about what's growing in the soil, it's about what's blooming in you. Let's walk the final stretch together. 11. Your garden as a mirror. And now, we arrive at the final stretch of this journey, not the end. Really, but a quiet pause, a moment to look back at everything we've touched, turned, and planted. Because somewhere between the seed packets and soil, the trellises and transplant trays, something else was growing. And it wasn't just the garden. It was you. You see, gardening has never really been just about food. It's not only the tomatoes or the herbs or the blossoms. It's what happens inside us as we tend to these small, living things. It's the patience we build while waiting for a sprout to appear. The trust we develop when we plant something today and won't taste it for months. The acceptance we learn when not every seed germinates, not every leaf thrives, and still, we plant again. In this way, your garden becomes a mirror, reflecting back who you are and who you're becoming. Maybe you've grown more confident, realizing you don't need a perfect space or fancy tools. Maybe you've found calm in the ritual of watering. Maybe, after a long day, the sound of your fingers brushing through basil leaves has reminded you to breathe deeper. And that's the gift of all this. Whether you have a sprawling backyard, a humble balcony, or just a few containers near your kitchen window, what you're cultivating isn't just vegetables. It's resilience, presence, hope, a rhythm that slows the noise of the outside world and calls you back to your senses. Your center, your purpose. So let this may be your beginning. Let every seed you sow be more than just a task, it can be a promise. That you're making room for life, for growth, for joy. And if this journey has stirred something in you, if you feel just a little more inspired, a little more grounded, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to Earthly Delights, where each week we plant not just tips and techniques, but tiny awakenings. Until next time, may your hands stay dirty, your heart stay full, and your garden keep whispering. Keep going. You're growing too. Where seeds end and stories begin. And just like that, we've reached the end of our garden walk, though in truth, the real journey is just beginning. 21 crops, countless possibilities, and one gardener, you, standing at the edge of something quietly extraordinary. Maybe you came here feeling unsure, wondering if it was too late to plant, if your space was too small, if you knew enough to start. But now, I hope you see what I see, that the garden doesn't ask for perfection. It only asks that you show up, that you try, that you believe in the tiny miracle of a seed. Each one you plant this May carries a story inside it, a quiet declaration. I choose to grow. And whether that seed becomes food, color, or calm, it all comes back to this one moment, the choice to begin. So take this video as your nudge, your companion, your sign. Go ahead, step outside, shake the soil from your hands, feel the sun on your skin. You have everything you need to start, even if it's just one pot, one patch, one tray on the windowsill. That's enough. That's powerful. And if this video brought you even a little peace, or a little inspiration, I'd be honored if you join our growing community here on Earthly Delights. Subscribe, share this with a friend who needs it, and let's keep growing together. Because every garden is a story. And yours? Yours is just getting good.